Welcome to Free and Accepted Podcasting, Suffolk Freemasons podcast designed to inform, entertain and educate.
Welcome to another episode of Suffolk Freemasons Free and Accepted podcasts. In this episode, our guest is Janet Humphrey, who is not a Mason, but has a very interesting story to tell for any female linked to any of our brethren who are listening to this podcast. So, Janet, welcome.
Hello.
Hello, Janet.
Hello.
Roger.
Roger's here. So we know each other
Yes.
from both retired police officers. But before we get to your story of why you're here, just give us a bit of background. So you are one of the longest serving female...
So I joined Suffolk Constabulary in 1985. I was 21. As you can tell from the accent, came from the northeast. So
Did you really?
who'd have thought it? And I was single, come down, didn't know anybody, etc., etc. Went through my career. In fact, when I did my training, my training sergeant said he thought I'd never make a policewoman because I was too shy. And anybody who knows me knows I am not shy.
You're not shy, no.
Many things, but shy is not one of them. So I've had a long and varied career. After the murders with Steve Wright, I did a lot of work with assisting sex workers off the streets of Ipswich, which progressed into off-street prostitution and then into human trafficking towards the end of my career. So I've done 30 years. I retired at 51, and I'm a little bit institutionalised and still love the work I do. And I came straight back as a civilian investigator in our major incident team, which deals with the murders and other serious crime.
And you're nearly 40 years in total service.
In October next year, I'll have done 40 years.
Now, before I get to the story, and I'll let Roger talk on this one as well, you were heavily involved with the on-street prostitutes during the Stephen Wright murder case, weren't you?
Yeah, very much so.
And people have often said to me, you were the one who should have got the recognition. Two people have said, others got MBEs and
OBEs,
or OBEs, other buggers' efforts.
Yeah.
But somebody said to me only last month, it should have been Janet, because you worked. That must have been a very difficult time.
It was a very difficult time, and I could talk about that for hours on end. But it was rewarding, hard work, and trying to help women off the streets and get into some kind of, let's call it, normality, and assistance was brilliant. It was the making of my career. I enjoyed every minute of it. I still to this day get asked to do talks on it. Yeah, I did one recently at Fram to a Women's Institute, just to tell them about the interesting bit about the actual investigation, but also that work that continued and put people right when I think some people have different views.
we could do that. I'm sure Roger would be fascinated by that as well.
Yes, I would, yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Now you're a mother.
Yeah, mother of two boys.
Two boys, both. One's in the control. One's a police officer.
One's in the control room. He's coming up 21, and one is just into his second year as a 24-year-old degree entry.
Right.
Uniformed police officer.
So there we had this situation where you're retired, you've got grown-up children, not running around so much for them, and think, oh, good.
I don't know. It's boys for you.
Exactly. I've got the rest of my life ahead of me. I can now relax and enjoy the things I've wanted to do over the years. And your story.
So, my mum died at 69 from breast cancer. And 2 years earlier, so this is back in 2022, my sister the year before, who's younger than me, also got breast cancer. So it was in the family. And I check myself regularly. And the one thing I would say to anybody out there, any woman particularly, is you must check yourself regularly. Probably the best time to do it is make it one day a month, not when you've had a period, but pick like a couple of weeks later, because you're physiology can change when you're having a period. You check yourself once a month on the same day at the same time, because actually you do change during the month. So don't do it as often as that. So I would check myself regularly. And what the strange thing about what happened with myself was I was laying in bed, felt a bit achy. I was mid-50s, I'm 60 now, 57 I was, and I thought, I feel a bit, I'll check myself laying down. And while I laid down, I checked my left breast, and I felt a lump right inside my breast tissue. I did not feel that standing up.
And some of the thing they say is that normally the advice is to check your breast standing up.
Yeah, so in the shower and that, and that's good advice.
Yeah.
Also, particularly, because when you lay down, everything moves, and I don't know if I'd have found it otherwise.
Yeah.
So that started a process. So my mammogram wasn't due till December, my 3-year mammogram, which we get regularly, women. This was the April. So I thought, what is that? So I'll pay. And I think it was if I'm honest, I think that was a wrong decision. I paid to have a private mammogram the next day. I didn't tell my husband that I'd found anything. I just said I'm going for a mammogram. So I went and had one, and they'd said to me, it'll take 4 days, 4 to 5 days if there's something wrong, 2 weeks if it's if you're all right. 2 weeks came. I was working from home, which you can do now. And it was the morning of a friend of ours who was a colleague as well's funeral, who had died for lung cancer. So it was that morning. I was going to the funeral in the afternoon. The phone rang, and it was the doctor from the private hospital saying, "You've got a suspicious lump. You need to call your doctors." And I think if I'd have done that straight away, it might have been just slightly quicker. Because the service I received from that point on has been exemplary.
Can I just, the point, because you're talking about when women are doing checking, but obviously if a woman's of an older age and she's not having periods, is it still to check yourself regularly on a regular day of a week?
I would.
Yeah.
And don't do it too often, because you worry about the slightest thing then. Do it on the same, say like the beginning of the month or the end of the month. So do it then, and remember to do under your arms as well, because of course your lymph nodes can swell. So under your arms, and obviously your breast, standing up, and if you can, now and again do it laying down.
And you said do it when you're having a shower?
You can do it in the shower.
Is there a particular reason?
No, it's just easy because
you're washing.
So do it in a shower, do it before you get dressed, but do it once a month maybe. Don't worry yourself too much. So I straight off to run my doctors. A week later, into the hospital, took a ultrasound and a biopsy. Went away. 2 weeks later, coming in for the results, and the result. I mean, I did feel that I'd got cancer. With the fact that both my sister and my mum had it, I knew in my heart that I had. But the shock of being told that actually you have got breast cancer, and not only have you got breast cancer, it is the worst type and the most aggressive and the rarest in the world. So it's between 1% and 5% of women get the type of breast cancer I've got, which was called metaplastic. So for ladies out there who listen to this, there's different types of breast cancer. There's ones, and I'm not going to go too much to it because it'll be too difficult. So there's breast cancer that is triggered, is sensitive to hormones. So there's that type, and when you get your treatment, you can then take hormone blockers to stop hormones, to stop it triggering it, your little insurance policy. Then you have triple negative, which means you're not triggered. It has just come. And my friend Wendy had got that. 6 months after me. And then above that is another one where, in essence, mine is rather than just one set of cells splitting and becoming cancerous, it's a mixture of cells. So really difficult to give you a prognosis and really difficult to actually treat.
Yeah.
And it's extremely rare. Like I say, 1 to 5% of women. And so my husband just couldn't believe it because he had you'll be all right. You'll be all right. We're going to get the right answer.
A bit of denial.
A bit of denial. He was in denial. And again, the men out there that are there, and I know how difficult it is as a partner, and I would say to my husband, well, we're both in this. It's not just about me. And he'd say, what do you want to do? How do you want to do this? I'd get a little bit, if I'm honest, a little bit aggravated about it, because I'd say it's not just about me, it's about both of us.
I think a man don't really know what to do, to be quite honest.
Yeah.
I think they're, as you say, they're in denial.
Yeah.
But also they're trying to do the right thing, but sometimes don't do the right thing by overcoming.
And we do appreciate it, and I appreciate everything he's done for me.
But I'll just cut, because when I spoke to you before, you ended up having to support your husband more than perhaps. Yeah. Again,
which in the scheme. So on the day we talked, the shock of him, he just collapsed basically. He was so shocked by it, and the rush of adrenaline. So he was on the floor being treated, and I'm there saying, well, it's me who's got the cancer. But actually, joking aside, that actually really helped me, because I thought, oh, well, they're all around him. Just give me a second.
To try and absorb.
The horrendous news, because then they obviously said, your only treatment at the moment is mastectomy. Book you in, get it out 3 weeks' time.
Yes.
3 weeks' time. So seeing him getting all the treatment and everything kind of really helped.
But the thing is, though, I mean, when men get the flu, you just don't know how bad.
Oh no! Oh, it's dreadful, isn't it?
Yeah.
It still is.
But I think
pathetic.
One of the important parts of this podcast is actually that although we're talking about female breast cancer, it's any cancer where the whole family are affected with any illness. It could be anything, couldn't it?
Yeah.
And it's how people deal with that.
Yeah.
And
I mean, I found it really. Obviously, I had to tell my boys. So the first thing we did was go around my sister-in-laws, who I'm very close with, and that's when I broke down. I didn't break down particularly in a hospital because it was too much shock, and they pile you full of information, and whenever you go in for cancer, it's just white noise when you first start.
Yeah.
You've got to come away from it and take a breath and all of that.
Well, they're very sympathetic when they tell you, I mean, it's just not like, oh, you've got cancer.
You get different people talk to you differently. So the first one, the first time when I went for the ultrasound, the consultant basically said, I think it's cancer. But what I spoke to him later, he said, I do that because I'm preparing you for when you do get the results, you can then accept it better. And I thought, that makes sense. So did that, and then told my boys, which was really hard.
I bet it was.
Especially one was at university, so I had to tell him when he cried, etc. So then you go back 3 weeks later. So 3 weeks later, I had a mastectomy. It was quite difficult because it was in lockdown still. It was just as COVID was coming out of it, so I had to keep myself safe. I was still at work, so I was still working for the police, and they all knew I'd got breast cancer, and everybody in the office had began to get COVID, and I wasn't going to have my mastectomy if I'd got COVID.
No,
that's right. Yeah.
So that'd be another 6 weeks, and how much will it have grown? All of that.
Yeah.
So then you go back in, and I had 6 months worth of chemotherapy after the mastectomy,
and you had reconstruction fairly quickly as well.
What was brilliant. So obviously that first time you're bombarded with information. You're going to have a mastectomy. Here's what you need to put in your bra when you haven't got a breast, and it's all a bit too much, if I'm honest. And then we go into well, I went in for my consultation with the surgeon, and she said fuss and nonsense. She's retired now. Come in with a big bag. She was great because she was fuss and nonsense, and I prefer that kind of way with people. And she just said, "Have you been spoken to about reconstruction?" I said, "No." And she said, "Well, if where it is was right underneath or right in the middle of my breast," she said, "if that's not connected to anything, and I don't see any spread, I can give you reconstruction here and now." As in, as soon as you've had the operation. So in essence, I call it a scoopectomy, not a mastectomy. So they basically scooped everything out and left my skin and my nipple and everything else. So I've got a scar under here which you can't see.
No,
you can't. It is absolutely fantastic.
Which in some respects must psychologically be quite positive.
It is quite positive, I have to say. It was positive to me, and that was so from ultrasound, 3 weeks a week, then 3 weeks later mastectomy, and reconstruction 3 weeks later in to get start your treatment.
So you had chemo before you had the...
No, so there's two different ways.
Okay.
Depending on the breadth of the cancer, you can have the chemo first to shrink it,
right,
and then they take it out. Or in my case, because of it being so aggressive, and I'm sure it had grown a centimetre from the time I first found it from the mammogram. So because of that, it had to come out straight away. So there I was, nice new boob, and straight into chemotherapy, and that is hard. It is hard. There's no doubt about it. But the women there who, so it's not how you think it is. You go in the day before. You have to have a blood test to make sure you're well enough to have the chemotherapy. So you go in on a Monday, then the next day you go in and you have the treatment, and that takes 3 hours, 2 or 3 hours. It can take more depending on the cancer, and it's strange because it's quite a uplifting experience because the nurses are just brilliant in there. Even the ones that were doing like my blood tests, they were always chatting and having a giggle and a laugh. And of course, then you, as a woman, you then have to go through the fact that you're going to lose all your hair. And not all chemotherapy you lose your hair, but breast cancer you do. So I went completely bald. In fact, as we've said before, I lost all my hair everywhere. Which, as I said before, well, I didn't have to use the razor anymore.
Saves money. There's always a silver lining.
So I didn't have to shave my legs or anywhere else, let's say. But it's quite hard for other people. Like Wendy, my colleague, she found it really hard because she used to have lovely flowing hair and to lose all her hair. But I will make everyone laugh. So I thought, I'll try it. My son cut my hair off. It got to a point where it was just coming out in lumps and I just couldn't stand it. I just said, just take it all off. So bless him, my youngest shaved all my hair off and I went bald. I went, great. I thought, I don't want any little bits. Take the lot off. So I'll go for a wig. But being a typical northerner, I thought, I'll get a cheapie from Amazon. And I got this cheap wig from Amazon, and honestly it was dreadful.
A hat would have been better.
A hat. Honestly, if I'd have worn it and I'd gone near a naked flame, it had just gone whoosh and have gone. So I chose not to have one.
Now you're laughing at this stage, which is brilliant. But at the time, because I know what you're like. But at the time, was some of that show, do you think, or were you able to have a degree of humour in how you dealt with things?
For me, the humour helped a lot, and in the hospital, I'd have a real giggle with some of the girls there, and
be positive.
Be positive. You're going to have, everybody does, no matter what your illness is, but you will have bad days and rough days, and I had some rough days, and I ended up in hospital overnight once. So the hair went, but I just wore a baseball cap, and I look great with bald head because I've got a little tiny head. So 6 months of chemotherapy. During that chemotherapy, I fainted. I was watching my boys play football for Framlingham Town, and we always go and watch. And I'd gone to watch, and it was an October day. It was a day like today, sunny but cold. So I'd wrapped up, and I fainted. And and I fainted again when I got home, and eventually we went back to the hospital. And it's a funny story, but it's not. So I went in the hospital and he going for my blood test, and I said, I've fainted a few times, so we better check you out. And I fainted whilst waiting for my treatment as well. And I woke up. I thought, what am I doing? And my legs were either side of this nurse's head. So when I finished my treatment and I give them all the cards and presents, I said, you'll never forget me because your head was between my legs. And that was dehydration. And it was, and I had to stay in overnight because they said, oh yeah, it might be your heart. And I was like, oh flipping heck, I've got bloody the worst breast cancer I can have.
Yeah.
Now you're telling me I've got a heart condition. But it wasn't, it was overnight. Full of fluids, fine, and that's the only bad thing that happened.
And how was your husband now he wasn't fainting, and you pressure on your children, the emotional stress of an extended family? How did you find that? Did you have to deal with it because you're a tough northerly set of inverted commas, or how did that work for you?
Boys would have different ways of dealing with it. Tom, my youngest, it was about humour. He'd just be normal and try and be as normal. My eldest was a bit more, what can I do for you, Mum? But he was at uni anyway. Yeah. And I said to him, stay at uni, you're not going to do anything with me. And my sister-in-law, Bridget, was absolutely fantastic. She did all my ironing. And in fact, for about a year and a half after, she still did it, even though I didn't need her to do it. Yeah. Because I hate ironing. But just that little bit of help. Yeah. Because I would try and do things. And I did go back to work fairly soon afterwards because that was my salvation. Yeah. Because I could go to work, be myself, and not be the person suffering from cancer.
Different function, focus.
Different
focus on things, and
I couldn't
sit
at home. I'm not a person to sit at home and stare at four walls. No. I have to be busy. Yeah. Yeah. So
did any of the family at any time, but with you all, have a bit of a breakdown, or was there this almost this agreement that we will try humour and positivity to get through this?
Yeah. There was nobody. Obviously, right at the beginning, we were all very upset. But no, we made the decision to be as strong as we could. It was very difficult for my dad, who's still alive then. But having seen his wife die of it and one daughter die of it, etc. So we got into. So I went through the treatment. Brilliant. I'm now I have 6 monthly checks because the fact that it's so rare, and I've just had the results of my last 6 months 2 days ago, and I'm still clear of
You're here for another 6 months,
at least.
But there is I didn't mean that I meant it jovially, but there's people who have an eye cancer, isn't it? And eventually that will hit their liver, I believe, and they have checks every 6 months. Yeah, and they live to the 6 months, don't they? Yeah. But as they say, sometimes you can have that check one day and you're not sure if the cancer hits the next day. Yeah. But what a way to live where we're all getting to an age where we could die anyway. Yeah. Sniper's Alley, I think they call it. Roger. Yeah. But living 6 months at a time is... Yeah. Have you just got used to that?
I've had to get used to it. I get really stressed in between the CT scan and the results because it's a month. Yeah. Wait a long time to hear that. And knowing how... The thing with breast cancer and other cancers, if it comes back, it's incurable. Yeah. So eventually it's going to get you. Yeah. And you have to live with that.
I mean, you're coming over a very positive lady about what you've been through. So you've then channeled that into a charitable side. Yeah. So if you could tell us a bit more about it.
So as we know, I like to keep busy, and I was influenced by particularly two charities. The first was Little Lifts, which are based in Norwich, but service basically all Suffolk hospitals and North Essex hospitals, and I think a little bit of Cambridgeshire. And what happens is when you go in for your treatment plan, you get this box, depending on what you're getting. If it's chemotherapy, it's called a chemotherapy box. If it's radiotherapy, and it is full of goodies. £80 worth of goodies, free, and you're like... And it just lifts you when you just get the worst news. Oh God, 6 months of chemotherapy, and there's all little useful bits in there, all healthy things, little books to read, puzzles, food, little even plastic spoons because it can affect your teeth. Chemotherapy can take your nails off. Lovely. And for me, that really lifted me at one of my down times.
Yeah.
And I thought they're a local, and they do offer it across the country now, and people can look it up and buy one for a friend who's going through it. So you can do that as well, and it's a brilliant thing. And being a local, so we did a bingo night at police headquarters, and we raised £1,500.
Oh, blimey! So that's Little Lifts.
Little Lifts. You can look it up. Based in Norwich, and they cover up everybody in Suffolk and Norfolk and Essex get the box. Anybody else has to apply for it across the country. And then after, when we were in recovery, if you go to the Macmillan Centre, there's all sorts of things you can do when you're in recovery after your chemotherapy. And one of them was to have, I call it a wellness day, but a makeup day is another thing. And it's with the Blossom charity, who are the Dream On, which is a shop up in Eye that give women who have had cancer, any sort of cancer, a day out, and you get your hair done if you've got any hair. You get your makeup done. You get they dress you in some lovely clothes and take some nice photographs so you can look like yourself again. You get a little lunch and you get a chat and everything. And they give you a voucher to spend in the shop. It is an absolutely fantastic day. They are lovely women in there, nails done, makeup done. And I always remember my friend Wendy going, and when I had mine done, I was okay about it, but she cried because it was the first time that she felt like herself. Yeah. So they're a fantastic local charity again, and we did a night at police headquarters, a fashion night, and Mark and the Masons helped out. Well, several of you.
Well, we had the Provincial Grand Master Jolyon Berry,
yes,
who may not mean much to you as to the title, but he's the head of Freemasonry.
Yeah.
John Neal came, our charity steward.
Yeah,
well, I spoke to John Neal, and you put the fear of God into him, because he said he had this amazing night, but he was put on a table with a load of ladies drinking a Prosecco. And he was scared out of his wit, but he said he had the amazing evening.
Well, the giggle about that was that John, I put him on one table and he obviously got himself mixed up. What are you doing? And he was with all my family, and my family are like a Prosecco. They're women of a certain age, so he fitted in really well. And it was just fantastic that the Masons and Mark, and with your connections, became involved and understood how much this is important for everybody out there, because all our lives are touched by cancer of some sort or another. So we had a fantastic life, and there was how many of you ended up being models?
There was three or four of us.
3 or 4 of us models, which was brilliant. And
Mark Murphy.
And Mark Murphy, who is a family friend, and Mark, you work with him yourself. He compared together with Bridget McIntyre, who's the head of the charity, and she set it all up.
Did it surprise you that Masons wanted to contribute money towards your?
It did surprise me. I was very shocked when you said it was going to be £1,000, and I was like, wow, that's brilliant. I'll just bump the numbers, because I'm a good seller as well, so I've done quite a lot, but it really, really helped. And just the fact that you supported it was unbelievable.
And we surprised you on the night.
And on the night, I could have cried. Well, I did have a little, when I talked about it, I had a little one of them moments when John come up and he put up that it was another £1,000. And that extra £1,000 ended up tipping us over the 10,000.
It was a fantastic night, wasn't it?
And since then, I have been asked several times, can I do it again next year? I'm not going to do it again next year. I need a break from it. But I may do it the year after, which might be my retirement year, because I think we have these local charities, and if we don't support them, then we should. They help me out. I'm going to help them so that other women can have a great time.
If you're I suppose I can't believe the time is shot by this. For Masons listening, and we would encourage them to get their female family members particularly to listen to this, but any member, because cancer affects male and female. What would you say to the wives, the sisters, the daughters, the nieces?
I would say to them, make sure you check yourself on a regular basis. If you find something, don't delay. If I'd have delayed it, I'd have think I might not be here today. and use your positivity and your family and get strength from them, and you will pull through, and it's not the end of the world. You can continue.
Mm-hmm. And what we do need to remember is males can get breast cancer.
Yeah, so that's the other
And
thing.
I don't think any male check their own breasts.
But and the other thing is, when you had breast cancer, if you have a genetic test, which I had because of my family background, but it's not genetic. It is, but it's not one of the genes they worry about. If there is a genetic link, your children, male children, are more likely to have the breast cancer and prostate cancer.
Oh, right.
So if you have it in the family and it's genetic and you get a genetic test, it will mean that your male children and your female children obviously will need to check themselves and have all the checks.
Janet, it's a really moving story. It's a very inspirational story.
I don't know about that. I've just got on with it. You have to, and I've said now I try and keep myself healthy. I don't drink anymore because that ups your risk. Not that I drank a lot anyway. I've never smoked. I try and eat healthily and the type of things that'll hold it at bay. But what will be, and I have to deal with it. There's nothing I can do. It's not me. I haven't done anything wrong. No. And ladies and women and girls that are out there, you haven't done anything wrong. There's nothing. It's just happens.
We just don't know what triggered it, do we?
You don't know what triggered it. And it's the same with men with prostate cancer. We know many, I would say to men, book yourself a blood test for the prostate, because that's the main killer in men as well.
Yeah. Janet, it's been really inspiring listening to you again, and I'd like to say thank you very much.
Yeah,
thank you again for joining me on Suffolk Province's free and accepted podcasting as we explore the craft and Royal Arch. Please join me and my guests for more episodes.